You ready?
Yeah, welcome in everybody. So tonight is our PCOS Zoom, and we have Brittaney, Sarah, and Kelly with us. I myself do not have PCOS, but these three lovely ladies have developed it and live with it, and they all have three different stories because that's actually the thing with PCOS is it's not one size fit all. And but you will notice that they have similar symptoms, but they live differently in how it's affected them. So I will talk about as we go things you can do to improve your insulin sensitivity, maybe what insulin sensitivity is, excuse me, what insulin resistance is, but how we can make ourselves maybe a little more insulin sensitive, because that's the goal when you have PCOS is to get your body more insulin sensitive. So, Brittany, do you want to kick off and tell like just your testimony, and then maybe
Yeah,
Kelly and Sarah will, and then I can talk about a little bit what insulin resistance is and how we maybe can manage it.
absolutely. And to answer, we had a question come in earlier too. I want Kelly to answer that when she speaks, if possible, because Kelly, you kind of went through that recently with somebody else in your life about how to know you have PCOS, the testing they do, and things like that. So we kick over to you. Will you include that as well? So I'm Brittany. We are glad that you're here tonight. I do have PCOS. I am 39. Yes, 39. Um, I was diagnosed at 22. I was a college athlete. I ate right. I worked out. I gained 80 pounds, even though I was doing everything correctly. So, um, I've had a lot of changes in my body. It was a very scary time. I did not know what was going on. I went through all of the testing to see. Turns out PCOS. I got on a roller coaster. A lot of women get on these roller coasters, a lot of men too, but the ups and downs. I was starving. I would go days without eating. I was over exercised. I was working myself to death so I wouldn't think about food. It was just kind of one of those things that I tried everything. It didn't work. Phenermine, a lot of you guys have heard of that. That was the doctor's diet I tried. I tried Vasalis, the shakes, the pink drink, the purple pill. If you can name it, I've tried it if it wasn't the shot or weight loss surgery. And I still just kept getting bigger and bigger. I was 400 pounds when I found the drops. And what had happened was I spun off a secondary issue. A lot of times it's diabetes. Mine was pseudotumor cerebri. So I did not have a brain tumor, thank God, but I had the pseudotumor mimics a brain tumor. So I had all of the same issues as if I would have had a brain tumor. I was 6 months away from losing my vision. I was in constant pain from the excess spinal fluid going down my back. I just lived in a horror story, to be quite honest with you. And you know what? That caused more weight gain. So I was just facing all of these issues. I was kickboxing 4 days a week. I was on my Peloton when I felt like it. I was not allowing carbs in my house, and I was still 400 pounds. My doctor said, "You're a healthy fat girl." And I just didn't want to be fat anymore. Nobody wants to worry about, am I going to fit in the plane seat? Can I squeeze through there to get to the bathroom at the restaurant? I did the things right, but it wasn't working. I was just done. We talked about weight loss surgery, but Allison and Jerry Wyndham took me to meet one of the other people on drops, and she could not exercise. And I thought, well, if she can't exercise and lose weight, then I can lose weight. And so that began my journey with the drops. In 2 days, I started my cycle. I haven't had one in 15 years without a doctor inducing it. So that to me, right then, I knew something was happening in my body. The belief hit just like that. First month, 12 pounds. I'm now down over 100. But as Kristen said, all our bodies are different. It's been 2 years now. I'm up and down. Something Todd would have hit on tonight that I've been kind of asking him to talk about is that I can't cheat on Sunday and go back on Monday like a lot of people can. If I cheat on Sunday, I'm good on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I don't start losing again until Thursday, even if I'm perfect Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, because of, like Kristen said, our insulin resistance. I can't live an 80-20 lifestyle. If I cheat on Sunday, my week is shot. So things like that set me further back sometimes, but we do have a community of support here. And to me, that has been the biggest thing that's kept me going. Kristen can give me, tips if I need them. I've talked to Sarah. You talk to people that are also on this journey, and they will help you along the way. And that to me has been the biggest thing. I mean, I love my drops, but I don't think I even could have stuck with those if I didn't have the community of support. So with that being said, I'm going to turn over to Kelly, our other magnificent co-host. She's all tan because she just got back from vacation as well. Kelly has a little bit different story than I do. We all do. You're going to hear that from Sarah as well. But Kelly went through it recently with a loved one. And so she can kind of even tell you more about the process of testing and finding out if you have PCOS. All right, Kelly.
Yes, my daughter was recently diagnosed with PCOS, and luckily, because I had been through what I have, I knew the signs to look for early on, and we've caught it very early before she's become insulin resistant. For me, mine was caught early because I was having ovarian cysts rupture. Um, I would have, instead of producing eggs and releasing them each month, I would produce cysts and they would just grow and grow and grow and get bigger. And when they would rupture, it'd be very painful. So when I was seeing my gynecologist, they were monitoring them because the cysts would sometimes be bigger than the ovaries and they would have to go in and take them off. So I didn't have to go through a lot of the guessing of the blood work because I did have the cysts on my ovaries. But before that, I had thought I was working out, eating right, and I might stay the same weight, or I might keep doing everything exactly the same and then just bump, oh wow, I'm 10 pounds heavier the next 2 days. Um, but for my daughter, I started noticing a ring around the neck. Usually it's on the back of your neck underneath your hair, dark, kind of can maybe look like rust or dirt that you need to wash off. That's a sign of insulin resistance. Hers were like little thin bands around the front part of her neck. She had also had her arms were more hairy than most girls her age and things like that. So when she started her cycle, I was very conscious of trying to keep up with that. And she's like, "Mom, no, I don't want to talk to you about this." Um, when she started, you would think she's a tiny little thing. She wasn't even 100 pounds, and I thought she was going to bleed to death. It was very heavy. She went 15 days in between her first two cycles. And so I started getting her tested. And my doctor, when she tested her, her DHEA levels were extremely high. That's one of the first things they look for because once that one gets higher, it causes you to produce more androgens and that causes your testosterone to go up, which then causes your blood sugar, insulin, and that's what leads to the insulin resistance. All of these hormones kind of, when one gets out of balance, another one tries to overcompensate and they all end up getting messed up. Luckily, we caught Kinsey's at the DHEA level increase versus where mine was full blown before we found it. So that's a few of the things you can ask for them to check. DHEA, testosterone, um, which when those go up, your cortisol also goes up, which leads to the weight gain. Um, but if you start seeing where you're having hair where you don't want it and not where you do want it, that's another thing that you might want to get checked out for. Um, there are three different types of PCOS. Some of them are the cystic ovaries. One of them is inflammatory and then insulin resistance. And you can have one or you could have all three. And that's what makes it so hard to determine when someone has it if they don't have the cysts. You know, there's such a wide range of symptoms that it's hard to pinpoint and diagnose because everybody's body reacts differently. Is there any?
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. I know that it's been hard for you to watch your daughter go through it, but I'm glad that you've armed yourself with the tools because all of these things that you just said, I had no clue about. I'm sure you had no clue about. We didn't know what was happening to our body when it started happening. So I appreciate you being vulnerable and also arming yourself with that information. And I think, Kelly, that's why you're here, isn't it? To help.
That's that is exactly why I wanted to do this Zoom with you is to let people know what the symptoms are. So maybe they can recognize it early
Yeah,
and not have to go through them. It's a mental struggle as much as it is a physical struggle.
Mm, yes, so true. That's been the biggest thing for me was the mental struggle. So we'll have to talk about that on one coming up. But Sarah, you want to introduce yourself? You're a newer face tonight and kind of give a brief overview of what you went through with your PCOS journey.
Of course. Hey everyone, I'm Sarah Weaver, also known as the Crazy Storm Chick. You might see me on IPA if you join in the mornings. My journey is a lot different than Brittany's and Kelly's. I was always on the bigger side growing up, especially after I ended up having surgery when I was 8 years old. And when I started my period, it was always extremely heavy. I was always in pain. And the doctors just kind of were like, oh, yeah, you're fine. That's normal. You're just a girl. You're a bigger girl. You're fine. Fast forward, when I was 30, because I'm 32, I forgot to mention that, but when I turned 30 years old, I was still having horrible cramps, heavy bleeding, and I was like, okay, something has to happen. I was on oral birth control, and I was like, okay, something's got to happen. Like this shouldn't be happening, right? Couldn't lose weight. I was constantly gaining more weight regardless how much I worked out, how well I ate, even portion control and everything of that sort. Which is why I started my drop journey, because I was at my wit's end. I was like, okay, something's got to happen. Well, I ended up going to my gynecologist and found out I had a fibroid, and it was 6 centimeters, and it was on the top of my cervix. And they were like, okay, well, obviously we're going to monitor it and keep an eye on it, but you have PCOS, and that would explain why throughout your entire life you've always had a heavy period. And I was like, okay, well then why am I just now at 30 years old finding this out? And that's something that I can honestly say with the drops, it's helped me mentally and physically. And yeah, that's my journey. Oh, and I forgot to mention with the drops and throughout having this and just knowing for 2 years, I've lost 64 pounds.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Congrats, Sarah. And we're so glad you're able to join us. Again, you've heard it here. You heard it from Kristen first and then from each one of us. It's different in everybody. I did not mention, Kelly did and Sarah did, which I should go back and mention. I was not having a cycle, but once a year. And, when I was, it was so heavy, it would last for 3 or 4 months. And that was all the way up until 22. 22 is when I got the diagnosis. And then it was like they stopped completely. They put me on metformin, birth control, and it stopped completely. And I didn't have one for nearly 15 years. So I went in to see because of that symptom. But I ended up with an intrauterine ultrasound is what they did for me to see if I had any cysts. And then they went into the blood work, looked at my testosterone levels and things like that. So with that being said, do any of you ladies have questions, or y'all want to turn it over to Kristen to talk about insulin?
We have one asking about a hysterectomy. Yes,
Oh.
I did have a hysterectomy at age 30.
So we've discussed it, but I've been trying to have kids for 15 years, and I really I wasn't ready to give that up. So I did not have a hysterectomy, but we have discussed it. Maybe later. I think we're kind of at peace with where we are, that we're not going to have children. But maybe later I'll have one. I don't know. Did it help, Kelly? How do you feel? I mean, our hormones are so crazy anyway.
Well, I'm an oddball, as always. Like where I told you my daughter's periods were excessive, I got to where I just didn't have them. I didn't have cycles. Every one of them that I had past age 21 was chemically medication induced by the fertility doctors. So I will say it helped in some areas, because one of the fertility treatments they put me on was Lupron, and I will say run screaming if anyone ever tries to put you on Lupron. It turned me into a crazy lady. I literally cried at a stop sign one day, and I gained 40 pounds in 2 months. 2 months. That 40 pounds stuck around for a long time. But so when I had so they put me in the chemically induced menopause. Their idea was to give me birth control to restart it. I never restarted. So I went through the hot flashes and all of that in my early 20s. So by the time I had this hysterectomy, I didn't have to go through that a second time. So that may be a factor for some people. One thing with the hysterectomy is I started having blood clots, or I had blood clots. So which I wasn't doing birth control anyway. We wanted another child. Let's see, how do I want to word this? It helped. I knew I most likely couldn't have another child. The fertility doctor we saw said she was I was the closest she'd ever come to saying that I would 100% not be able to have children on my own. She said 99.999 because of how, they had to give me medicine to make me create the egg, then medication to release the egg.
That's
And
right.
then after I did, the eggs I produced had such a hard exoskeleton, we had to have ICSI with our IVF. So I think the hysterectomy helped mentally because I wasn't, holding out that one little tiny 0.00% chance that, hey, I'm going to get pregnant this month. Um, it helped in that aspect, and it also helped with the pain of the cyst rupturing.
Yeah.
But as far as I just thought, I'm going to have a hysterectomy. I'm going to be able to get off metformin. Nope, that was not the case. I didn't get off metformin until I started the drops.
That was
And,
me as well.
and my hysterectomy was at 30, and I started the drops at 38.
Yeah.
No, 37.
So I'm glad to hear that is, because that was my belief, was that if I got a hysterectomy that it would fix it all. I held on to everything because I wanted children. And so yeah, it didn't fix it at all, huh?
Didn't. It helped with the cyst rupturing, but as far as the hormone imbalances, those were still there.
Yeah. And Kristen may be able to shed some light on that.
Well, I just want to note that all three of you are so very different and that there is no known cause for PCOS, which I think is very interesting. It's not one size fit all, and then there is no cause. It could be hereditary, it could be environmental, it could be, childhood upbringing. Like you never know what could be the trigger to it because it's also different. But my forte is more in the insulin resistance part because that can be in metabolic syndrome, that can be in diabetes, and of course it can be in PCOS. So people are kind of interested in what is, and you may be on this the first time saying, what does insulin resistance really mean? Like how would I even know if I was that, or what's my body doing if I am insulin resistant? Like what's going on? So let's just a little bit of a background of that. So when we eat, when we feed and we nourish, carbohydrates, but some proteins too, your body is going to send the signal to make insulin. And some proteins will be converted over to glucose as well, but specifically, we know carbohydrates and sugars, right? We all know that's going to turn into glucose. We all know that because we're told to eat low carb meals, especially if you are insulin resistant. But so when we feed, our body is making insulin, which is a hormone, right? Produced by the pancreas. And all hormones do is send messages. They're signals. They say your body needs to go do this, your cells need to go do this. And insulin is no different than that. So we eat, insulin is released from the pancreas, and it's wanting to tell the cells to open up to deliver glucose, because glucose is the energy source for our cells. You need glucose to make your bodies run, to make your cells work. Whatever cell it is, they all need glucose, whether it's coming from a protein, a carb, it's got to be converted and used for fuel. So, but people with insulin resistance, here's the thing. It's like, think of this. You got your cell. You think of like a cell, like a ball or something. I like to do like pictures. You've got this ball and you've got like this little flap on it. Well, the insulin is basically knocking on the door saying, open the flap, so this glucose can get into the cell to run. But what happens when you're insulin resistant is there's no knock. So the cell door never opens. So insulin just stays in there. It just stays out. And guess what? Glucose just stays in your bloodstream, which is bad, okay? Because too much can cause, right, hyperglycemia. And that can lead to headaches. We're just talking mild things. Headaches, blurred vision. It actually will lead you to be hungry again. Thirsty. I don't know if y'all experience any of that. And then that also will lead to the excess androgens being made because, well, the blood sugar's going, it's got to go somewhere. Let's go to those ovaries. So then they start overproducing the androgens, which is, the male hormones. We all have them. We all still have, like women still have some of them, but it's way excessive, which is, Kelly said, her daughter started having more hair. Polycystic ovarian syndrome women may end up getting some facial hair like that. I mean, how awful would that feel to be a woman and feel like you gotta like shave? But
And
that's it.
Kristen, I
Yeah,
also had a bald spot because we get male pattern balding.
there you go. So this is all linked to that excess blood sugar. So what we want is your bodies to become more insulin sensitive. And there are ways to do that. So that door starts getting knocked. And what causes the insulin resistance to happen? Here's the thing. We don't really know. It could be here, it could be a genetic thing. It could be, always go back to environmental because we know our food got changed in the 70s before I was born, but like think of that old-fashioned food pyramid. What was at the bottom? Bread, pastas, and then we got some fruits and vegetables, and then our fats and meats were like that is so backwards thinking, but that was what we were taught. So if you are constantly feeding all of this carbohydrate, all of this bread, because you think it's the healthy thing to do and you're feeding your children, which I would be like, if that's what I'm being told, that's what the government tells us to do, it's what the health care professionals tell us to do, but they're constantly having glucose hits, they're constantly having insulin hits, so those cells, one, are full. They're saying, I don't need any more. You don't need any more sugar to come in here, my door is not opening for you. And then over time, you may say, well, I'm going to go on those low carb meals or those low carb diets. But guess what? You've worn that door knocking out and it's saying, I'm not opening up no matter what. I'm tired. Like it's just not opening. So then you become insulin resistant, one, because maybe your cells are just too full of glucose, or two, they've been overworked for years and years because guess what's in all of our foods? Added sugars, carbs, high fructose corn syrups. Thank God some of this is getting changed.
Yes.
But for the past 20 years, like even as I was a kid, like that was in all of our cereals. That was in and it got worse. Like I have to look at my kids' foods now. I'm like, God, like I look at all this extra sugar content because they load it in and then they load it in with saturated fats. So it's just an overload. And that's just like another thing. Your cells are saying, we're not going to have any more glucose come in. We've worked our way. It's like a subway train full of people. The doors aren't going to open. We got too many people in here. You're not coming in. You know what I mean? So it's kind of think of that analogy. So that's kind of what insulin resistance means. But we need our bodies to be more sensitive to it so the energy can come into the cells and the cells can thrive and you can flourish. You can have energy again. But there are some ways to make yourself more insulin sensitive. Brittaney said she worked out to death. You know, sometimes it's too much, by the way. Sometimes you need quality over quantity. And there is research that shows like high intensity for shorts, 20, 30 minutes. That would be the best thing for someone with polycystic, not the long drag out sessions. One, that's going to make you more hungry. You're going to use up a whole lot of calories. You're going to be more hungry, but we need those high hit bursts that actually burn up glucose in the body. Omega-3s. Omega-3s will be the best thing as well. Those are anti-inflammatory, which Kelly touched on. Inflammatory markers are very much linked to PCOS, and people with PCOS always carry some sort of inflammation. Like even if it's a low-grade inflammation, there's inflammation there. So things that will help keep the inflammation down. Good sleep. I'll always push that. I'm a stickler for sleep because that's when your body recovers. So get on a good sleep cycle because that's when your growth hormone will go up and you'll recover.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
So Kristen always says, get on a sleep cycle. So Kristen and I are close to the same town. So we see each other a lot. And she says, get on a good sleep cycle. And I'm laughing because I can't, like, they're like, don't look at your phone for 2 hours. I'm like, I haven't seen a screen in 42 days. Like, I cannot sleep. It has to do with progesterone levels as well. Is that correct, Kristen?
Well, progesterone does have mood altering effects too. So when you can get any kind of hormone balance, but by the way, if your progesterone is, obviously that's a side effect of this too, but vitamin D.
Mm.
Vitamin D is crucial to be supplementing with polycystic. I know we talk, this is a drop talk, or we mentioned the drops most of the time here, but a supplemental product, if you're not on one and you have polycystic, it needs to be Magna-Cal D. Vitamin D is a pro-hormone, but it will absolutely help get those estrogen progesterone levels balanced out naturally. So if you're not going to take it, you need to sit in the sun as little as close as possible, 15 minutes a day. But I still say supplement it with at night as well. And I love the Magna-Cal D because it's got the magnesium in it that will help you rest.
It'll
So
also help. Magnesium helps lower testosterone in women, I believe, is what I read. I know Ashley had told me you need to get on it. We did some research. Once I started the Magna Cal D, that's when the facial hair really, I started seeing it go, probably within 2 months of starting the Magna Cal D along with the drops. There's a lot of good in there. When somebody says, what do you recommend along with the drops? I always say Magna Cal D with PCOS.
yeah, absolutely. And grapeseed, the Vinali is also another one, is really good with helping polycystic. And we might do a whole Zoom that will be supplemental products for this.
Mm-hmm.
But grapeseed extract is another one that is beneficial. So, does anybody have any questions about that?
Um, hey, Sarah, they all muted. Do you want them to put it in the chat?
Sure. Yeah. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to put those in chat.
But as far as me, I don't. I feel like I've learned more from here. But what I feel like something we don't learn in school, our parents didn't really know. You hit on it with the food pyramid, but the hidden sugars, and it's like a new one pops up every single day. So when I started the drops, I thought I was doing right, but y'all, I was still gaining weight. It wasn't just my PCOS. I was putting a little zero sugar. I have an empty packet somewhere. Zero sugar water flavor in my water, and it's full of artificial sweeteners, but I was uneducated. So a lot of this has been getting myself educated, attending Zooms and learning things so that I can lose weight. So if you know somebody with PCOS that want to try the drops, they need to learn these things, because it's not just like, I saw one man put drops in his body, lost 30 pounds in a month. Like, that doesn't work for everybody. We have to educate ourselves when we have further health issues going on. Go ahead, Kristen. I know you wanted to say
Yeah,
something.
I was just gonna say the more whole foods and less packaging you can do, the better off you're going to be here because you're going to give your body more nutrients and more supporting things for you cellularly. And you don't have, if it's a whole food, you got to look at the back and say, wonder what's in this. Like you just said, water additive. So I have an orange, a lime, and a lemon in here. This is delicious. I didn't have to look at any ingredients.
Yeah.
It's natural. It's giving me supporting things and it tastes good, right? So the more you can eat from whole foods and less out of a package, the better off you will be, and it'll keep your inflammation down.
Um, Somebody had said, and I think you touched on it. Can you specifically say why the drops are helping people like Kristen, Sarah, and myself with PCOS when the other diets and stuff didn't work?
So we know that bottle one is going to be our homeopathic blend, and it's just going to have some things in there, one that helps support the endocrine system, that helps support the thyroid, that helps support metabolic issues. So also helps support stress. I don't know about these ladies, but I imagine stress is probably a factor when you are diagnosed with this. But keeping all the balance, and again, the endocrine system, we're not just talking about these reproductive hormones. We need to talk about cortisol. We got to talk about the thyroid hormones. We're talking about the full package. And when we start getting that supported, that's when I feel like the weight loss starts happening. But I really think they're big at also bottle two. We have B12, it's going to help their metabolism. We have things that help inflammation in bottle two, like rose hips and the acerola cherry. Again, if you have PCOS, you probably have some low grade inflammation. This is helping I feel like the 360 degrees of it. But I think the biggest compliment to the drops is that food the approved food list for them. It's a guide and it's whole foods, low glycemic, and it's saying eat, don't starve. Eat from this, take the drops, get your body supported, get your cells supported, and get the right foods in and let your body start. We don't heal, treat, cure, diagnose anything, but let your body start repairing whatever damage is in. And you notice they all have three different things going on. They all have three different stories, but they've all benefited with the drops because the drops are supposed to bring you back into homeostasis, get your body back to balance, whatever's out of balance. And I think that's the key to using the system.
Yeah. And so I
For
want to
me,
add to that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no,
Kelly.
I was going to say for me, my prolactin levels were, they were that of a nursing mother, and my kids were 12 and a half when I started the drops. The prolactin had caused me to have daily migraines. The drops, when I started those, they support the whole the endocrine system as a whole. And so where it's not just insulin, it also helped my prolactin levels. And once those got within normal range, that's when I started dropping the weight and just finding balance. And it's not supporting one specific thing, it's supporting all the different types.
Right, because it's not medicine. We're
That's
not
right.
picking this, and then we want the body to get back to its natural state, which
So
is
I can
healthy,
tell. Oh, what'd you say?
which it should be
Yeah,
healthy, right?
right. So I can tell you when it clicked for me. It was about the 2 month mark, but I was like living by that food list. I did not take, but it did not pass my lips, not a peppermint, nothing, if it wasn't on that list. And it like flipped. I started sleeping. The weight started really coming off. I started my hair started growing back. I mean, I don't have a bald spot anymore, guys. You know, everything really just clicked. But that also reiterates the fact that people with PCOS need to commit to at least 3 months, at least, to even see results. A lot of, I hear, and Kelly, you may can reiterate this, but people are like, oh, the energy. I was like, I don't have this energy from these drops. At the end of the month, the energy hit and it stayed with me. But my body had to get to that. What is that word, Kristen? Homeostasis. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a teacher. I don't do that fancy words that Kristen does. But yeah, so my body had to get into the where it was working like it was supposed to. And so when it did, then things started really happening for me. So I think that is the biggest thing for me is the food list, the drops, and giving it time. I did get discouraged, but I talked to people around me and they kept me going. So Sarah, do you have anything you want to add?
There
No,
are
no, you guys have hit every single thing.
there are a few questions coming through.
Yeah, the one off all the meds you were originally given. I was on 8 medications when I started the drops. We do not treat, diagnose, cure, heal any of that here. But when your body starts working like it's supposed to, it's amazing what can happen. I am off all 8 medications. My doctor took me off of them. Yes, everything we said before, I'm off of. Kelly, are you?
Yes, with my doctor's guidance, doing my blood work every 3 months and monitoring it, I've been able to come off of metformin for the insulin resistance, spironolactone, and finasteride. Both of those were for keeping the testosterone down and for hair loss. The finasteride is a generic Propecia because I had my hair was getting very thin and I had a bald spot at the back. I'm also off Maxalt, Nurtec, and I was on a prescription migraine cocktail from Vanderbilt of Compazine and Benadryl, and we know we don't need Benadryl every day. I'm off all of those with my doctor's guidance.
So Nurtec is the one that cost me $1,500 a month copay.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I was on that one also.
You kind of guard those pills and save them for a really bad day.
Yes. Sarah's shaking her head. There's one, the food list says to eat carbs. That's a Kristen question. That's why I'm gonna pull that one out. The food list says to eat carbs, but there are no carbs on the list. How do you advise people around this? Because I was also thinking the same thing. Like I was the girl that thought I said last week, protein is pepperoni, and it's not. So can you go over the good carbs that are on the list, Kristen?
Well, all the carbs that are on that approved food list are good carbs. They're all low glycemic. Now there may be a maintenance list that has introduced some more, but um, the only ones that I would say you might, yeah, insulin resistance people might be like, oh, I think there might be some carrots on there. Those are going to be a little more, but if you eat those early in the day, you're giving your body maybe a little more chance to burn them off. But still, if you're coupling, so I always say it's balance. Because this is still low glycemic. Those are still low, like everything on it's still low glycemic. But you want to have fiber. Fiber will keep your blood sugar levels even more stable. Brittany, did you eat any fruit?
Yes, some, but I
Berries?
yes,
Just
berries.
berries. So,
I was eating pineapple until I realized it's
yeah,
not on
no,
the list.
but that's not on the list.
Right.
So, I always just say follow the approved food list is a low glycemic approved food list. I definitely do not encourage a no carb. Um, like the keto, I'm not a fan of ketos. I think berries, vegetables, believe it or not, are still some of those are, considered carbohydrates. So you are still eating carbs when you eat vegetables.
That's right.
So
Quinoa is on there. That's a carb. If you're craving carbs, get some quinoa.
yeah, I'd be like you feel like you're eating rice.
Rice, no
Uh,
difference.
yeah, it's just what that means. It's not gonna spike blood sugar like a rice or a potato would. It's not gonna cause as much of an insulin reaction. So that's the good part. That's what you're wanting to happen. You want to keep the insulin down. So if it's pineapple, it's a lot of sugar in there. So guess what? More insulin just popped out. And if it's berries, it's insulin's not being, it's just a moderate amount coming out. So that's the goal, is to keep the blood sugars from going up way too high because again, they're insulin resistant. So if they're not absorbing that sugar that's in the pineapple, it's going to stay in the bloodstream. And that's not what they want. It's not what they want.
Okay, so this is what I'm going to say because we're already 15 minutes over our targeted time. I know Kristen has somewhere she has to be, I think. I know I do, in 15. So what we're going to do is we'll get together a place where you can put some questions. That way we can have a question and answer session. I know there's still a lot of you that did not get answered. So be looking for that in Level Up Life, Partner Conation, and we will give you a place to put questions that we can answer on the next one after Todd comes on. In the meantime, if you guys have questions, feel free to ask. We'll get back to you when we can. But if you were invited here tonight by anybody, it's because they care about you and want to help you. So please get back with them. Let them know you got on, what you learned, and how you feel about the drops, and go from there. So before we close out, Kristen, Kelly, Sarah, you guys want to add anything?
No, we'll just see you all next week. And I hope this was somewhat helpful, even though we got out of
Sidetracked.
sorts. Yes.
Hey,
Hey, it
I'm a firm
happens.
believer everything happens for a reason.
That's right. That's right. So, yeah, we'll let you guys know. Kristen and Kelly will look at their schedule, and if we can have Todd next Monday, I will get that out immediately, so that you guys know and can come back and get that. Those of you that are asking if it's recorded, it is. Sarah, you're getting the link. I can if not. Okay, perfect. Sarah's our whiz. Kelly, do you have anything you want to add?
No. One thing I can recommend is spearmint tea. The
Oh yes.
anti-androgenic properties of spearmint tea have really helped me.
Awesome. Yes, I love spearmint tea. It will calm an upset stomach. I love my spearmint tea. I agree. I just want to say thank you to both of these ladies. And Sarah too. I appreciate you coming on, Sarah, and taking care of us tonight. But Kelly and Kristen come here, every 2 weeks to help me because I want everybody to know what PCOS is. We want you guys to be able to help your customers. If you're suffering with PCOS, if your friends or family are, Kelly has a passion for it. And so she shows up every other week and does this, and Kristen comes every time so that she can support Kelly and I on the knowledge side of it. So I just really want to recognize both of you ladies tonight and say thank you for continuing to do this with us. Kristen just got back from vacation, Kelly just got back from vacation, and they're still here. So I appreciate you ladies. All right.
Thank you, ladies.